Alright, hey guys, this video is just a bit of a study resource, not only for myself, but also for my fellow medical students who are perhaps finding a bit of difficulty with understanding and learning the urea cycle. Now, for subjects involving biochemistry, it is quite difficult to learn pathways and be able to understand their functions, especially if all that you do is continuously write the pathways out. It's a good way to memorize, but to understand why each reaction undergoes what it undergoes and why the products of each reaction are made and how some of the intermediates of these pathways affect others is much more of a holistic approach to learning these pathways, and the reason why we study medicine in the first place is to understand the body. So the first thing I just want to look at is the overview of the urea cycle. So the main purpose we have here is to excrete excess ammonium ions from our body, and this process is known as detoxification. Now, what's interesting to note here is that in the human body, this form of nitrogen is can come into our bodies by the organic material that we eat. But what's interesting to know in, say, fish and amphibians, for example, they actually only deal with ammonia. This ammonium compound is never really found within their system. So this ammonia as well has the ability to simply just be transferred to the water or excreted into the water, and it's quite a permeable sort of molecule. So for the fish and amphibians, they're able to get rid of it quite readily, whereas with humans, we need a process to convert this toxic molecule into something that's non-toxic so that we can get it out of our bodies, which is, of course, the main goal of the human body is to maintain homeostasis and keep you alive, which is what you would have been learning in the last few weeks. So this excess ammonium travels through blood to the liver, and this is carried by either glutamate or glutamine, and these are the abbreviations of it. So this ammonium ion, just think it binds to either one of these compounds, these amino acids, glutamate or glutamine, and these take it to the liver, where it can be processed to be detoxified. Now, the compound that it is changed to, per se, is urea. Now, urea, I've drawn the molecule here for you. The two main things here about urea that are good for us, humans, is that it's non-toxic and it's water-soluble. So ammonium, the NH4 molecule, is toxic to the body, and it needs to be converted to the non-toxic form to be excreted. And obviously, pretty simple logic. I mean, you don't want toxic compounds in your body. It can cause many different things to happen, and disease and eventually death if it was disturbed enough. Now, that explains the non-toxicity, and the hydrophilic property of the urea is also necessary, because it needs to be easily transported by the blood after it's been synthesized in the liver to the kidneys, where it can be excreted as urine, and it'll go through its the nephrons and all those types of processes in the kidney to eventually get the urea into urine, where it will also get rid of other excess salts, excess minerals, all those types of things. So what's interesting with urea, and what you should remember, is that 4 ATPs are required for every urea molecule synthesized. So one urea molecule, you need 4 ATPs for it to be created, and that happens in the cells of the liver. So how is this done? Alright, well, we will go here and have a look at that. Okay, so to start off, the very first step of the urea cycle, we will have carbon dioxide combining with this ammonium ion. Now, an important thing to remember is where this carbon dioxide came from. How did this come about? Can't have just come from thin air. And you're right. The carbon dioxide actually comes from the product of the TCA cycle. So you can think of, let's add that in there. So let's just put very basic TCA cycle. You get this this carbon dioxide, and it comes from the TCA cycle so that the urea cycle can occur. Now, and as you would imagine, if the TCA cycle were to be disturbed, this would have a negative effect on this entire process, because this first step, as I'm about to explain, is very, very important in getting the whole thing underway. So hopefully you've got an understanding of how that carbon dioxide came about and why it's important, and why the TCA cycle is important. Maybe I might do a video on the TCA cycle for those who would want it. Okay, now this first reaction, we are having a dephosphorylation of ATP and a phosphorylation of the combination of these two molecules. So we are going to have, let me just get a makeshift pointer going. So we are going to have these two molecules combined together, and this compound, this carbamyl phosphate, will be the end product of this reaction. And I've drawn the structure here for you, and this blue part, this circled blue part, will come in as important later in this overview, and I'll explain why later. But basically, in this reaction, we have two ATPs being dephosphorylated, so they're losing phosphates to get that energy required for this reaction to go forward. And subsequently, we are getting two inorganic phosphate molecules, or maybe pyrophosphates, but I'm not 100% sure. You might want to consult with your textbooks or other knowledge to look. I apologize for that. But I'm fairly sure it's the inorganic phosphate ions. And coming out of this reaction, byproduct, we have two water molecules. And these water molecules can be distributed throughout the body for various purposes, as you would have learned that water has in the body. Now, the enzyme responsible for this reaction is carbamyl phosphate synthetase 1. CPS1 is an easy way to remember. And this is the main regulator for nitrogen in the body. Reason is, this carbamyl phosphate synthetase 1, this controls the amount of this ammonium ion concentration in the body, and it can be pretty easily understood due to the fact that if you have more of this enzyme available, this reaction can occur more, and thereby you'd lose a lot of this ammonium ion, which is good, which is what you want. But say if you had less of this enzyme in your body, or this was somehow affected in a negative way by something else, you would have problems with toxicity, with ammonium toxicity, and that could cause various different problems. So that should explain why that this enzyme CPS1 is the main regulator for nitrogen in the body. Now, as I've said, this is an overview, so I haven't got all the steps here for the urea cycle, but we have this carbamyl phosphate that comes into the urea cycle, and we actually have aspartate, which also comes into this urea cycle here, and this is a very simple version, and it'll be further explained soon, I promise. But we actually have this aspartate coming in one of the intermediate steps of this reaction, and we get a byproduct known as fumarate. Now, what is interesting to note here is that fumarate is actually one of the intermediates of the TCA cycle. So here, how interesting that we have an intermediate right at the start, and right in the middle of this, we actually have fumarate being created as an intermediate of the TCA cycle. So this can go off, and this is important because we can yield energy from this in the form of reducing NADH or FADH in the TCA cycle. So, excuse me, so I've just got the structures there for you guys to notice how this happens. Now, this is where, now you'll notice I also had a red outline on this ammonia ion here, and that's because throughout the steps, you eventually get to urea, and this first part of the molecule comes from the carbamyl phosphate. So you can think of it as this urea is part of the carbamyl phosphate plus part of the aspartate molecule coming together. And now this this is good for our bodies because we can get rid of it, we can excrete it, it's harmless, it's non-toxic, water-soluble, transports itself through the blood from the liver to the kidneys, can be excreted. So, we ask, how is this excreted? So first we have urea. Once it's synthesized in the liver, we go from the liver to the blood, and it can travel through the blood because it's water-soluble, to the kidneys, then to the urine as a primary source of its excretion, and it goes outside of the body. Now, another way that urea can also be excreted from the body is through sweat. And it's a misconception people have that, you sweat, sometimes you're sweating urine. No, it's just this non-toxic part of this cycle which can be excreted from your sweat glands, which is just urea. So that was just an overview video for the urea cycle. I hope it helped. I know it's certainly going to help me to learn this stuff, but I hope it can help you guys as well. Thanks.